Hello again. Those of you who follow us on social media at Bike and Run Coach is the handle, will know that I was up at Paris, meeting some of the people that I coach and people in our training group. And watching the progress of the athletes on the tracker really brought home the variation in average speed and also how important that is. I've discussed it in some detail actually before with Nick, one of the people that I've worked with briefly and who really impressively got to PBP. He didn't finish unfortunately because he picked up some injuries during his qualifiers, but he made a great effort and we discussed at some length average speed and how important that is. So essentially, as the distance gets longer, you have to be able to go faster, which is quite unfortunate, I suppose, because as the distance gets longer, the tendency is to get more tired and go a bit slower. A good way to illustrate this is with the Audaxers. So for most Audax events, you've got to ride at a minimum speed of 15 kilometres an hour average. Well, that's what sets your time limit. So if you say you were doing 100 kilometres, well, you can do 100 kilometres without stopping. So if you can do a little bit faster than 15 kilometres an hour average riding speed, then you can finish a 100 kilometre Audax and within the time limit. Similarly, if you're doing 200 kilometres, well, 200 kilometres, 120 miles, you can probably, if you carry enough food, you can probably do that certainly with minimal stops. So if you can ride a little bit faster than 15 kilometres an hour, well, you can finish within the time limit. Then if you get to 300 kilometres and perhaps also more so 400 kilometres, you've got to stop. You're going to have a break, you're going to have to probably go to the toilet, might have to stop and buy some food or get some food, or you're certainly going to have to stop at controls and spend time at controls. So you have to be able to go faster. Your sustainable speed has to be higher for the longer event. So it becomes doubly hard because you've got to go longer, you're going to get more tired, but you've also got to be able to go a little bit faster while you're actually riding to come in within the time limit. And then of course with the 600 kilometre event, you ideally you want to be able to get a bit of sleep, and although I mentioned Nick earlier, I think he only had about 1 hour's sleep to get through the 600. His 600 kilometre qualifier for PBP. But then if you push that out to a super randonnée event like Paris or London, Edinburgh, London, you're then doing 1200 kilometres or more. You're going from 2 days, 40 hours time limit, to 4 days. Well, Paris, you get 90 hours to complete the event. So you get a little bit more than 15 kilometres an hour. But that is stacked into the second 600 kilometres. You've still got to ride 600, and if you do that with minimal sleep, then you perhaps be able to get away with building up some sleep time, but the likelihood is you're going to slow down. So with a 1200, you're definitely going to have at least a small amount of sleep in 4 days, or at least a bit of time off the bike, and you've got to stop at all the controls and things like that. So watching this on the tracker, it became quite quickly apparent that anybody riding close to 15 kilometres an hour at the start was going to really struggle to finish, and people riding around the 20 kilometre mark, the more experienced Audaxers that I work with, were riding around the 20, 17, 18, 20 kilometres an hour pace, and they were the ones, well, some of them suffered in the heat, it was a very hot year, but they were the ones that seemed, were more likely to succeed, and the person that was able to keep that going only finished in 82 hours. He was kind enough to give me this little present that he brought over in his bag from over there. It's the first time I've met some of these people face to face, so it's a very nice experience for me. So you've got this average riding speed, which is the sort of speed, you're probably not going to ride your actual riding speed is going to get slower as you go from 100 kilometres to 600 kilometres, but it's sort of your average sustained speed. It's certainly not going to get faster. So the pace you can ride for 100 kilometres is whatever it is, and if you're just coming in within the time limit, then you've got to be able to go faster. You might be able to sit on the bike for long enough. You might be able to sit on the bike for 40 hours. With a few short breaks for your 600 kilometres, but you've still got to do these stops and have sufficient extra speed time in the bank so that you can then have your breaks. You can't just say you're going to ride faster, because you just get tired quicker and you have to stop or slow down, and on average you end up going slower. So you have to train yourself to be faster, and to do that you have to do some faster riding. And obviously if you're going to do some faster riding, that has to be over shorter distances, because if your limit is 15 kilometres or 16 kilometres an hour for 100 kilometres, you can't decide to go out and ride 100 kilometres at 20 kilometres an hour, because it won't work. You can't do it. So you have to do shorter distances faster, and then gradually your body gets used to riding faster, adapts, increases all your thresholds, your first threshold, your aerobic threshold, what a lot of people call it, and your FTP goes up, and your VO2 max will go up as well if you do some high intensity work that stimulates your VO2 max. But all this takes a lot of time. And one of the other things I've noticed when I was doing a bit of analysis, it was certainly apparent that somebody who'd started 2 years out from the event was in a lot better shape than somebody who'd only been training for the 1 year. So time's a factor. It takes a long time to get faster, to build its average riding speed so that you can do longer events. And this is equally applicable to bikepacking events, in that before Jenny Graham did the Round the World, we were working together for a couple of years, and before that she'd already done the Highland Trail 500 and a number of longer events. So she'd built up over years, and it takes years to do it. But you can do some things to get faster. The way training works is that you just get better at what you do. So if you spend a lot of time riding at 15 kilometres an hour, you'll just get better at riding at 15 kilometres an hour. And then when you try and do a super long event, then fatigue takes over, because if you don't sleep for 4 days, you're going to get tired, irrespective of whether you're sat on a bike or not. So this sort of sustaining of your life takes up time, and therefore you have to be able to go faster. I seem like I'm repeating myself a lot, so anyway, sorry about that, but I think it's quite important to get. So once you get to this point where you can sit on the bike for long enough, then you really want to start to focus on getting faster, but increasing this 15 kilometres an hour to 16 kilometres an hour to hopefully around about 20 kilometres an hour, which gives you a really good chance of completing the Super Randonnée event, and also makes a 600 kilometre event a bit more manageable. One of the other people I work with is very experienced Audaxer, and he was at the start of PvP before the heat got to him. It was a really hot year. He was quite comfortable in managing 20 kilometres an hour, and he got through to 400 kilometres without, he's well ahead of schedule. He had plenty in hand. It was just that he just was so hot and suffering from the conditions, basically fatigue of living and being outside in the sun all day, that got to him, rather than his ability to ride at a certain speed, or the fact that he's getting timed out. So to get faster, you have to ride faster. You can do short rides, like 20-minute rides, blasting around, like 10-mile time trials are sometimes a good thing to do, 16-kilometre time trials. But the best thing to do is interval training sessions. So interval training sessions, why are intervals useful for ultra-endurance cyclists? Well, that's the reason, because it increases this average speed that you can go at, and therefore it makes longer events more manageable, because when you have to take more breaks, you need to have a bit more of a buffer. So all interval training is just a way of spending more time going faster. So if you think, I'll show the power duration curve here. It's a good illustration. It shows that you can go at a higher power for a short period of time and a lower power for a long period of time, and they're the maximum powers of this person over the various durations. So all interval training is a way to spend longer at a given intensity, and it's been shown that the biggest factor in stimulating a response is the time that you spend at a given intensity. So for instance, say you're doing the sort of classic 4x8 or 5x5 minutes efforts around about your FTP, or a little bit more, around about your 20-minute power. 4x8, that's 32 minutes compared to 20 minutes, so you're doing an extra 12 minutes of time at that intensity, and in one session. And then if you do that session again, so you do manage 2 of these sessions a week, you've done 24 minutes more than you would be spending. You're doing 50% more time at that intensity, and as a consequence you're going to get a better stimulus. And also it's probably a little bit less debilitating, and you can recover better and still maintain a much better training volume overall. mentally it's very difficult to do a flat out 20-minute effort, whereas these 4x8s around about your 20-minute pace, they're fairly manageable. It's not that bad. The last one might be a bit hard, but generally speaking, until you get to the last part of the last effort or the last two efforts, it's not so bad, and you're recovering quite quickly from them. So that's all intervals is. And what you do is what you're trying to do is spend some time going faster than your average pace, recover from it, and maintain that type of volume so that you maintain your endurance. And over the weeks and months of doing it, you get faster, that average speed goes up, and ultimately you can do longer and longer events and still be within this average 15 kilometers per hour. So hopefully that makes sense and is useful. But as I said, it takes a long time. So say you're starting from scratch, you think, well, I'd love to do Paris-Brest-Paris it's in 4 years' time. So if you start now, the sooner you start, the better. And similarly, London, Edinburgh, London, well, definitely it's time to start now, because as I'd said, the athletes that had tried to do everything within a year really struggled, and people who had got 2 years to go for it would, it worked a bit better. They had a much better chance of getting round. And in fact, I worked with somebody for last London, Edinburgh, London. He spent 2 years training for it, and he did really, really well. He did it very comfortably. So if you want a bit of help, it's a bit of a sales pitch, sorry, but if you want some help, we've got this training group. It's full of experienced endurance cyclists. Our training group is, there's lots of really experienced people, all the people I've mentioned that have done Paris-Brest-Paris. Stephen, who from Australia, he's done it 4 times now. And they're coming to our workshops, so you can learn from them, you can learn from me. I've been coaching bikepackers and ultra endurance cyclists and runners for over 10 years now, and as a consequence, there's a huge amount of experience that you can learn from. We've got a group plan which is very affordable. Some of the group plans include, the premium group plan includes one-to-one meetings with myself or the running group with Claire, which gives you that boost. It maintains motivation. We've got more contact time and therefore more interaction, and more interaction is always better. And of course the ultimate is the one-to-one coaching packages where we work with you directly. And if you look on our website, we've got training plans for long distance events as well. So have a look, get in touch, get free information on our website, here on YouTube, make a comment on YouTube. I always respond to comments. So you can ask a question there and I'll get back to you and answer it as fully as I can. And you'll be off to a great start. But bear in mind, with the interval session, you don't do too much. Like most people find that 2 hard sessions a week, 2 high intensity sessions and 1 longer session a week is plenty. You're going to make some gains on that. If you're an older athlete or an inexperienced athlete, then 1 interval session per week will make a difference to you, or just 1 hard ride will make a difference to you, or just do a ride where you work hard on climbs, do some Strava segments or something like that. All you're trying to do is just go a bit faster, upset your body, so it thinks, oh well, I better get myself able to ride a bit faster so I can do that next time. That's really all training's about, just pushing your body, making your body a little bit uncomfortable. Give it time to adapt and then make it a little bit uncomfortable again, but that uncomfortableness occurs at a higher intensity or a higher duration. And that's pretty simple, but doing it and having somebody in it with you makes a big difference. And that's it. Good luck. Please make a comment, please subscribe, and please get in touch. I'd love to work with you, and I'll see you next time. Bye.